One. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. We have KFT coming up really freaking soon, and we're here with another Lightforge to
The card dump was Friday, right? We got this. We got all the cards. We know exactly what's about to happen in KFT, and we're about to tell you how the meta is going to look arena-wise.
In an alternate universe, I would say yes, but in this universe, unfortunately not. We do not have the card dump, so we are waiting for the card dump on Monday.
That was such a buzzkill. That was such a buzzkill when I found out it wasn't coming out Friday, so we can do analysis over the weekend. I'm still busy on other stuff, but the card dump is happening on Monday, so by the time you listen to this, you will actually have all of the cards if you go on like Blizzard's Facebook or websites like that.
Yeah, very disappointing. Also gives us a significantly shorter amount of time to check out the cards, and especially because card dumps include a lot of neutral common cards.
All the neutral common cards. I made a tweet. I was like, hey, do you guys know like 80% of class cards are revealed, and like I don't know, like 65% of neutral commons, rares, and legendaries. But you know what percentage of common neutrals are revealed? 30.
Yeah.
Just 30. That's like, of the cards that have not been revealed, half of them are neutral commons. It's not quite that bad, but it's kind of close.
The most impactful cards for the arena are neutral commons, and 70% of them we haven't seen.
So that's the caveat, right? We're going to caveat it and say we don't know any of this. You may know by the time you listen to this. So we are living in a different universe, but we're not going to not have a podcast just because we don't have all the information. We are going to supplement this by doing the actual card review on Tuesday night. Join us live on our Twitch, twitch.tv/grinninggoat. It will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, or you were, I think last time we did it actually as a podcast maybe. But you know that when we do these card analysis, when all the cards come out, it goes for like 5-6 hours. So our hope is to be able to get this card, the card reveal for KFT done on Tuesday night in 6 hours or less. That is the hope. And if you want to join us for that live, or if you want to listen to it later, watch it later on YouTube or listen to it, it is not going to actually be uploaded in podcast form, unfortunately. But you can look at all the YouTube videos when you're doing other stuff, or that's the format we'll be releasing it in. We don't have enough time to like make it into a podcast and upload all the audios. Like that actually takes a decent chunk of time. So that is our plan if you are listening to the Lightforge and trying to figure out our card review. In the meantime, let's just talk a little bit about KFT and what cards we do have, because like I said, we have almost all of like the non-common like neutral cards, right?
Yeah, we have all of them.
Almost all of them. I'm like scrolling down here on the site. If you're going to watch this on YouTube, we'll be using is Disguised Toast site. And all of them are filled in. This is just like all the cards. They're mostly filled in. So we could talk about stuff. What do you want to talk about first?
All right. Well, I do want to talk about the common neutrals because they are, just the most meta defining cards. How do you feel about that? You want to start there?
Okay, we can start with the common neutrals.
All right.
So we left off last time on Bone Mare, right? Like that was like the big like ball busting huge what the heck is Blizzard thinking kind of like I guess we could say what the hell because it's like Bone Mare. Kind of like card. It's like Blessing of Kings on a stick, and the stick is a 2-mana 5/5, which is a pretty good stick. A 3-mana 5/5. Still a pretty good stick as far as sticks go. And so we were wondering, is Blizzard going to beat that? What's Blizzard going to do? Are we seeing a theme here with Necrotic Geist, the 3/5/6 mana card that is the bigger Cultmaster that generates 2/2 so it can keep chaining, and also the Cobalt Scalebane, which is a 5-mana 5/5 that gives +3 attack to random friendly minions at the end of each turn, to one random friendly minion at the end of each turn. And so we're looking and we're like wondering, like, this is kind of setting up a theme, right? Like I called it, the last Lightforge was titled Reward the Board, because that's what Blizzard looks like they may be going to. They may be trying to, for once, reward you neutral wise, like, you know, with neutral cards for actually being on the board, instead of having these like primordial drakes and these like, you know, other things that come out like off the board, right? Like Devil Soar, these like big powerful minions that are totally fine when played from off the board.
Yep.
So trend continuing or trend broken?
Well, let's see, based on the first card, or not the first card, but another common neutral card that was revealed this week, Sunborn Valkyr, which is a 5-mana 5/4 minion with Battlecry, give adjacent minions +2 health. So to answer your questions, yes, very much in the same theme, right? It rewards you for being on the board, and also major consideration for your opponent when they're thinking, oh, I'll just go face, right? Like they can't punish me too hard. You have to watch out for this card, because if you're able to get relevant +2 health buffs off on 2 minions, that could just be game winning right there.
So yeah, when you're looking at arena cards, the thing you have to look for is how easy it is to trigger these things, right? Like whenever you have an ability that's not like just do something. If it's very, like, a lot of constructed players go into arena and they're like, oh, I want to put this synergy off. I guess I'll have like a decent number of like beasts or murlocs or whatever, and I can do this, and you may be able to, but let's say you have to wait like 5 turns to do it. That's not the best. On the other hand, if your condition is like, I have a board of 2 minions, that is much more consistent to pull off, not only in the draft, because you will have to draft minions, but also in the game, because in arena, you're going to win by putting minions on the board generally. So these are very easy to pull off conditionals, and this one gives you 2 more stats than you're supposed to get from a 5-mana card if you pull off hitting both. And if you pull off hitting 1, then it's totally normal of a 5-mana card, right? So just good value here.
Yep. Very good value. Now, let's look at the next card that was revealed. 3-mana, 2/4 minion, Death Speaker with Battlecry. Give a friendly minion immune this turn. Oh, man. This card scares me, right? Look, we're basically giving a neutral Argent Protector to all the classes. And is Argent Protector a good card? Yes, definitely. Is it an OP card? No. But giving this ability to all the classes definitely worries me, right? Whenever you give neutral AoE, or you give sort of neutral immune, like, you know, this card, the Death Speaker ability, it makes me worry a little bit, because once again, you're giving a very powerful effect to all the classes at once. And a lot of classes didn't have this ability, right? Like you were not punished for just going face. And now you have to worry about it for every single class. And I've never liked that, right? We've talked about this. So I never want all classes to get a powerful ability at the same time.
Really? So you didn't like Primordial Drake? Is that what you were saying?
No,
was
except
that not
for that.
the best card design?
It was so enjoyable. I loved playing with Primordial Drake having an increased offering rate in the meta. That was incredibly fun.
But yeah, that's exactly what this what this kind of thing is. Is it by itself? This isn't even that bad. This is nowhere near as good as Primordial Drake. Some people were going crazy over this card when it first got revealed. It's not like the best thing that's ever happened, especially after Angoro. It'll kind of like be in line with the normal power levels. But what it does do is something that we haven't done before, and more importantly, like Merp said, right? The classes that you would normally not be punished for just leaving them on the board include like Rogue, they include Warrior, they include, especially now after the Power of Overwhelming was removed, Warlock can't really punish you that much by buffing the board. Like there's quite a number of classes that just don't, like Mage is probably the biggest one. I don't know why I didn't lead with that. But that's a lot of classes, right? Like Rogues and Mages take up a huge portion of the meta. And your way of beating Rogues and Mages is to go face, right? Or it's to make them remove your stuff and only remove things when it's very favorable to you. And what are you going to do now with the Bone Mares and the Sunborn Valkyries and the Death Speakers and the Cobalt Scalebanes and the Necrotic Geist? I don't know what you're going to do, but you're probably going to have to remove the board just like you do against Paladins and Priests and all that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely pushing Arena in a different direction, and Death Speaker is more punishing than most of the other ones because it directly scales with how big of a minion you have on the board. right? It's the only one that directly scales with that. So if your opponent plays at 8-8 and you go face, you may have to pay for it with that speaker.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's not the super duper OP card. I think some people think it is. It is very, very good, and it gives a very powerful effect.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's going to be one of those annoying cards where every single class, every single turn, I'm always thinking of it now.
But that's the thing, right? Like, and let's do one more card before I go on my little rant. Corpse Raiser is a rare. It is a 5-mana 3/3, and it has a battle cry that says, give a friendly minion Death Rattle, resummon this minion. Now, you don't actually need something on the board. You can play it on the same turn with it. It'll basically do the same. But for all intents and purposes, right, this is like Death Speaker, but for 2 more mana, but you don't have to trigger it on the same turn, right?
Yeah.
And if your minion is like hitting something and eating it, all Death Speaker will do is prevent it from saving some health. This gives it still its Death Rattle, right? Like if your 5/6 is going to eat a 5/5 or something, you can still Corpse Raiser it. You can play it. It's easier to play, but in return, it does cost 2 more mana to do that, which is quite a hefty penalty. So again, though, this is clearly a good card, right? This is clearly you're giving a minion Death Rattle, resummon the minion. If the minion is like a 3/2, you've kind of gotten the value out of your Corpse Raiser if you can resummon it on the same turn. So for most minions, it's just pure win, right? And I mean, it fits the theme, right? The same theme we just went over. It is Sunborn Valkyrie, Fallen Sun Cleric, Death Speaker, Corpse Raiser, Bone Mare, Necrotic Geist, Kobold Scalebane. It's all the same thing. We have not talked about Fallen Sun Cleric, have we?
No.
Do you want to talk about Fallen Sun Cleric before I go on? I just really want to go on my rant.
Sure. I know, and I will go through this quickly. Fallen Sun Cleric is a neutral common card, 2 mana, 2/1 body with a battle cry. Give a friendly minion +1/+1. It's just the little sister of Shattered Sun Cleric, right? Mm-hmm. Same effect. You get 2 less stats on Shattered Sun Cleric. Once again, look, it's a board-centric card that is weak by itself, but can definitely help you snowball, can help you build on the board. Nothing fancy.
Yeah. So the brand I'm trying to get at is that any of these cards by itself is not the worst thing ever. It's kind of, they're not things we've never seen before, right? Like, look at Defender of Argus. We just talked about Shattered Sun, Stormwind Champ, Dark Iron Dwarf, Direwolf Alpha. There are neutral cards that buff the board by 1 or 2 damage, right? These have always existed. They've existed since Classic, and they just haven't really published that many more cards like this. Now, in one setting, what you've done is, even without the offering bonus and without the penalty to existing Classic cards, even without those 2, what you've done is you have already more than doubled, of the revealed cards, you have already more than doubled the amount of neutral stuff that buff things on the board, and the types of buffing it does on the board is like double the scale of what we were previously seeing. So add the bonus to KFT cards, which is going to be like around 100%, I'm guessing, and add the penalty to Classic cards, which is 50% for the neutrals. What you're going to see is 4 times and the amount of cards that is going to buff the board. 4 times what you see now. And the power on average is going to be 8 times what you see now. So to put that into game terms, if you were not punished for 10 times going face or ignoring the opponent's board or whatever when the opponent is a mage, and you were punished once out of every 10 times, now you're going to be punished 8 times out of every 10 times. Like, that's the math.
That's quite a lot.
And how often do you get punished when you go face against a mage? About 1 in 10, right? Maybe 1 in 12. Like, not very often, but like, it happens.
Yeah, it definitely does, because there's neutral buffs and or just situations, right?
Yeah. And now it's going to be definitely more than half. Like, no matter what numbers you're, like, assuming or, like, your experience is showing, like, it is going to be more than half the time you're going to get destroyed if you leave your opponents with something on the board. Not like, in any particular turn, but if, like, that's your philosophy for a game, right? If during a time you're like, oh, I have to go face, why? Or else I lose anyway. Well, your chances of recovering from that and actually pulling your plan off it just got a lot lower.
Yeah. All right. Well, it definitely look, all of these cards fits your theme, like you said, right? Your board, protect it, reward. Uh, if you protect your board, you are able to snowball, and if you're on the other side, you got to clear. That's basically it.
Yep. Just to like, I want the scope to really sink in. Like, I get we get here, we look at the cards, everyone looks at the cards, they're like, oh, there's gonna be some buffs in the meta now. I guess it's more like advantageous for us to clear the board. No, it's not more advantageous for you to clear the board. It's ridiculously advantageous for you to clear the board compared to before. Like, ridiculously, 8 times the scope. I'm gonna repeat that again. For like not paladin and like not priest, for all the other classes. 8 times as much. That's not like even like a 3 times as much. 8 is a bigger number than 3. And I know you guys know this, like math, right? Like, first grade, maybe before that if you were smart. But do you really need to feel how much more punishing this meta has gotten? Like, we kind of like went in that direction when we saw Bone Mare, Necrotic Geist, and Cobalt Scalebane. But now we have 4 more, and we don't know how many more we don't have, right, in the neutral. Like I said, we have not even seen most of the neutral commons. We've seen a little bit over half of the neutral rares, but we've seen only like 30% of the neutral commons. So there's more stuff coming, probably.
Probably. But, yep. Those are what we've seen so far from the neutrals. So what do you want to talk about next?
I'm just still stuck on the whole like 8 thing. Like, that is like, if I were, it's basically one of those things where like it's so important how the meta's going to look that like I just want to keep repeating it. But let's talk about something else. That's kind of the theme. I think that's like the big overarching theme that you're going to see in KFT. And we don't know all the rest of the cards are, but even if not a single more buff or board-centric card is released in KFT, we already have an extremely, extremely strong theme. And we were talking about this earlier, right? Like, Ungoro, as soon as we saw the card dump and everything else, we see like taunt and freeze, right? Like, that was a thing that was happening.
Definitely.
Freezer, like, freeze opponents, freeze your own board, like whatever, taunt, everything taunts. You have a Primordial Drake on top of that, and then poison was the other theme, right? Those are like kind of the big like neutral themes that like and there's a lot of beasts all around, right? Like, these were just things that were going to happen to every deck no matter what you were doing. So for KFT, the thing that is going to happen no matter what you're doing is you're going to want a board, because you're going to get a lot of hugely powerful cards that only work if you have a board. So if you don't have a board, you're missing access to, like, I don't know, like maybe a third of the powerful cards in the game that are neutral. That's going to make you lose the game. Yeah. So the other thing that I think we've noticed is that the cards, and I think everyone's noticed this, and I think Blizzard's gotten a lot of very worthy positive feedback from this, is this expansion is very like, it's very complicated, right? It really seems like Blizzard has come around to saying like, all right, we're actually not going to put these like decks together for you. It's not going to be all just like combos that we say you're making a Nazat deck, or you're making a hand buff deck, or you're making a elemental deck, and it's saying, look, here's some tools, do what you want with them. They each do weird, crazy situational things, and otherwise they're even okay. They're normally decently statted, generally kind of on the powerful side, so you'll like play around with them and use it and go for it. So how do you think that'll play out in the arena, especially, right? Because we know Blizzard doesn't really design cards from an arena perspective. They design cards for constructed. So given that, how well do you think this actually translates to arena?
Well, historically, cards that are kind of tech-ish in nature, right? That are tech cards, or combo cards, that are theme cards, or play off of other cards, have not done very well in arena, right? It's the cards that are independently good that really shine in arena, or maybe they trigger off something very easy, right? Like having a beast for Hunter. That's pretty easy. And some of these cards, not only do they require a weird condition, or require you to maybe only put like 2 or 3 minions in your deck to optimize it. Some of them reward you with like lifesteal, right? And in which case, it's not that advantageous in arena. Like, I'm not saying lifesteal is bad, but uh, we know the sort of old message in Arena: use life as a resource, and if they have card advantage, more life isn't going to save you.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of cool, and you might be able to pull off some combos, but these are not the Arena cards that we are looking for.
Okay. I have the opposite perspective on this, and I guess we'll see who's right when after the expansions come out for a bit.
Well, I mean, we don't know because we haven't seen.
Yeah, we haven't seen all the rest of the cards.
Yeah.
And like we said, there's a lot of things to still be done, but I think it's looking really good right now. I'm looking at let's say the common neutrals that have been revealed so far. There's been 8 of them, and 8 of them are playable arena cards. 8 out of 8 so far common neutrals, playable arena cards. You go to the rares. They have revealed 7 rares. 7 out of 8. 7 out of 7 revealed rare cards so far for neutrals are playable arena cards. I don't just mean like playable. I mean like they're at least like a 3-mana 3/3, you know? Like you're not going to be terribly unhappy if you draft it, even if they're not super powerful. And like we said, right, a lot of them are super powerful. Oh, sorry, for rares, it was ticking. The ticking abomination got me. I was like 4 mana, 5/6. But no, okay, fine. 5 out of 6 rares, still a really good ratio. You don't usually hit this kind of ratio, and I don't know if we will, once we see the rest of them. But so far, so good. And same thing with the epics. All the epics that were shown so far, except one, are very playable arena cards. So even if their conditional doesn't trigger, they're very playable arena cards that you feel decent to really good at putting in your deck, and that provides a good amount of consistency, I think, to Arena, which Arena needs. So while you're not going to get the combos and all that stuff that these decks that these cards sometimes look like they're designed for, they seem okay to me when it comes to keeping Arena, I guess the word I'm looking for is stable, so you don't get those really bad or really extremely good decks. We talk about Bone Marrow as being extremely good, but it's not better than a Primordial Drake,
Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't push the envelope of what a neutral card can do the way Ungoro can. Ungoro reset the definition of what a neutral card can do, and we thought KFT was going to pull back a little, but it looks like KFT is it's not as, overall, if you look at the cards we've seen so far, they're not I think there's fewer cards so far that are as powerful as the Ungoro cards from when we first see them, but we may still see more powerful neutral cards later. And we're going to get into this later, but even when you look at class cards, some of the classes, it's very polarizing, the class cards we've seen so far, because what Merp says is right for 3 classes. Paladin, Shaman, and Warrior are getting screwed. They have unplayable cards, and I don't know how you're going to draft these classes with an offering bonus in the new meta, and we'll talk about that. But others like Druid, Hunter, and Priest are getting very stable cards, even if they're not amazing, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just worrisome right now because it seems like all the cards in the expansion are. There are very few that are independently good. Very, very few. I don't think we've seen an expansion that has this percentage of cards that sort of rely on what's in your deck, right? What's on the board. It just nothing that's really independently good, which makes a lot of sense from a constructed standpoint. But if we're going to see a huge offering bonus, that sort of worries me. But like I said, we haven't seen so many neutral cards, and they could just be putting the Bloodfin Raptors and the Yetis into there.
Yeah, so far we've seen no 2-drops. That's something that worries me, right? I'm looking at the state. I'm always looking at the state of the curve whenever this is released, and it's a really much better discussion to have when you have all the cards. But so far we haven't seen any. We'll see, right? You need at least 4 2-drops for things to be okay, and preferably I'd want 6 in the release. Ungoro had 5 or 6 even. So, and remember, we're because of 7.1, how the offering odds have been shifted around against the classic minions. We're actually always in the edge of not having enough 2-drops to even make a curve. Always. And so my biggest question right now, and in case you're thinking it's just one expansion, I did the math. The percent change after you account for the offering bonus and the lack of an offering bonus of the previous cards, the standard size bonus reduction, all that, is about 33%. That's the effect on the existing card pool of this new expansion. Even though we're only getting 130 cards out of like the 900 that already exist, the actual effect in the arena is more than 33%. That's huge. This is going to define the meta. That's how, like I said, right? Like 8 times. 8 times. So my question is, if you don't actually have like a curve to set up the board, which, you know, no 2-drops yet, but if this doesn't come, and you can see it whenever they reveal it, see if we have 2-drops. If we don't have 2-drops, how are you going to buff things? Right? Like, maybe the idea is to totally destroy Curvestone, and so you just happen to buff things, which is really bad. That's even worse than Curvestone, because then that becomes whoever ends up with a minion that sticks for 1 turn wins the whole game. Why?
Right.
Because that minion gets buffed like crazy, and they have another minion that can get buffed, and you just, like, you snowball from any time, anywhere. You just have to be the first person with a minion on the board that doesn't get removed the next turn. And that's a way less fun meta than even Curvestone, right? So,
Yep.
I don't know, just a concern. We'll see if that happens. I'm going to be very disappointed if there's any less than 4 2-drops in common and rare. And I think 6 would create the minimally acceptable, like, healthy meta. Like, 4 is the cliff. Okay. I suppose we move on now to what people are really waiting for. Not like our whole themes and things like that, which you kind of already knew. But now we're going to go to the individual cards, right? We just collected like maybe like 10 cards that we're going to go over as quickly as possible, but we're going to go faster as it goes on. And we're going to start off with the slow ones we really want to talk about. Just like things that caught our eye and we want to talk about. So the first card, Merps, take it away.
Oh, all right. So these are cards that we have put in the WTF section, I guess, right?
Yep. I literally titled it WTF.
Yeah. Because these are cards which we look at it and we're just like, what? Either because of the effect or its power level. First one, Bone Drake. Neutral, rare card. 6 mana, 6/5 dragon. Important, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got a tag. Death Rattle, add a random dragon to your hand. If you look at it on first glance, you're like, oh, this is sort of typical of big cards right now, right? Extreme value, you're getting less stats than you're used to. Is it good? Yeah, it's really good. Get a random drag in your hand. It's aggressively statted, which is kind of appropriate. You know, you kind of want it to die, but at the same time, easier for your opponent to get rid of. But then you look at the dragons that you can get. There, I think someone did the math, and it's 16 dragons, right?
Yep.
And there are you have basically a 1/3 chance of getting a super premium dragon, a Nixia, Deathwing, Ysera, Primordial Drakes, like that power level of a card. And when you roll, the worst thing is a Bookworm, which is pretty bad. And then it's like Fairy Dragon and Twilight Drake, which those are solid arena cards. And
I don't know if Fairy Dragon's a solid arena card after turn 6.
Yeah, after turn 6. But those are sort of your worst case scenarios. And then after that, this is a card that will frustratingly win games on either side, right? You grab a Deathwing, you grab a Primordial Drake off of this, and you can win a game that you shouldn't have won. And these are cards that, man, the power level is there, the randomness is there, and that's disappointing. Right.
Can we get Azure Drake back? I just want. I didn't even like Azure Drake.
Yeah.
But like, get rid of Bone Drake. Give us Azure Drake.
You know it's a dragon, but what are you gonna do? Are you gonna play around the Primordial Drake? Are you gonna play around
the Primordial Drake and the Deathwing together make up a very large percentage? So yeah, you are.
You are
gonna play around it.
It's 6% chance for any one. So
you are. It's 12% chance that you have a giant board clear coming your way.
Right. But also you look at it in terms of, and you say, well, maybe I can win the value game. You're like, wait, it could be a Nixia or Ysera, right, on top of that. So maybe I don't want to keep on trading and say, oh, my 1.5 card or 2 card advantage is enough. I don't need to push face, because Ysera and a Nixia automatically is like a 3-for-1.
Yeah,
right?
So you want to push face, right?
And then you run into Primordial Drake.
And Alex Straza. Let's not forget about Alex.
Right. You have Alex Straza as well. Dragons are really freaking good. Okay? And this card just, the design is frustrating.
It's
It's
horrible.
very frustrating.
Bone Drake to Bone Drake to Bone Drake. Come on, like
Oh yeah,
there's
you could do. Yeah, you could easily do that as well. And I don't know, because at that point, when this thing dies, they can basically play. They're close to playing the dragons, right? It's not like if it's a very small card, they get a random dragon. Like I'm forgetting the name. What's the 2-mana minion that summon or that discovers a dragon? If you have another dragon,
Netherspite Historian.
Right, Netherspite Historian. With the Historian, if they discover a dragon, but they haven't played it for a long, long time, you have some reads, right? With this
Also,
one,
the Netherspite Historian is a 2-mana 1/3.
Right. Yes. Also,
it's kind of different than a Bone Drake.
In the usefulness of the body, which is kind of different. But also for that one, you have many turns to sort of maybe suss it out, right? You know Deathwing is coming. You know Primordial Drake or Onyxia is coming. For this one, you have no idea. It's at the point of the game where after it dies, you have no reads. You're not going to get any reads. You play into Deathwing. You play into
But
into
what a
Primordial
good
Drake.
arena card. No synergies required. Just gets its value.
It's insane. This is a card that I'm severely disappointed in. And yeah, you're just going to win and lose games off of this with very minimal amount of information gain, of counterplay. And those are the cards you don't want to see.
Yeah, it's a rare card, neutral, so it's going to be seen everywhere. It is a minion, it's not a spell, so, and it's neutral. You're only going to see it so much, but like, this is a card that single-handedly wins games, right? Like, whenever you look at a group of cards that's released, you look at the neutral cards and you see, like, hey, how many of these can single-handedly win games? And the answer is usually, like, one. Like, even in Ungoro, when you had all these ridiculous cards, like, snails aren't going to single-handedly win you a game. What's going to single-handedly win you a game is Primordial Drake. It's Charged Devilsaur, maybe. Like, those are the cards, like, Cult Masters, right? There's very few neutral cards that will single-handedly win you a game. Now, you're going to add onto that list Necrotic Geist, Bone Drake, probably Bone Mare, maybe a Corpse Raiser also. These are this is a large amount of increase, is my point, in the percentage of neutral cards that are game winning. So it's changing the arena, right? Like, the arena is homogenizing because these powerful cards are being put in the neutral pool, starting from Ungoro, which is why all the Ungoro games feel kind of the same. But it's going to continue going in that direction, apparently. And Bone Drake is huge in that. This isn't even part of a theme. We have no theme for Bone Drake. There's not even like card draw is not even a theme in this expansion, so far at least. I guess Bone Drake technically has a Death Rattle, but again, you see in KFT, Death Rattles are being used not to put Tempo on the board. Death Rattles are being used to like do random other stuff. So Bone Drake is going to draw a card here. You have another one that draws a card, which is the Shallow Gravedigger, which can give you a Bone Drake because it adds a Death Rattle minion to your hand. So there's like weird things going on here, but what I think the important thing is that I trust that Blizzard is going to include 8 other dragons in this expansion that are all smaller than fairy dragons, and I think that'll solve all the problems.
You're gonna have like the tiny fin or the penguin puffer version of a dragon.
Snow
like
Flipper Penguin is just the beginning.
Yeah.
There's gonna be eggs that are categorized as dragons. There's gonna be like total duds. Just watch. Because you also have to think, right? Like, this card's gonna be in constructed too. This is not. Oh, yeah. This is not like an arena only problem. So they know it, and they're gonna have to like be solving for it. And we just don't know how they solved it yet.
Right. I think the point you made earlier is really important. Like, previously, after you drafted your deck, you looked at win conditions, and if you don't do this, you should be doing it. You should be looking at win conditions and saying, okay, how many win conditions do I have and what are they? Predominantly, they were class cards.
Yep.
And your backbone, your skeleton of the deck, the stuff that gets you to your win condition, those are the neutrals. But now, so many neutrals are win conditions, and it's bad when the skeleton is made up of neutrals and the win condition are also neutrals. And then now, I'm not saying class cards aren't win conditions anymore. You still have a lot of them.
They are. They're just equals to neutrals.
Right. But this is how, like, this is the picture of how you like this is how a class is homogenized,
Mhm.
right? And you can clearly see it when every single class, it doesn't matter if you're a paladin or you're a mage or you're a rogue, when all three are like, oh, what are my win conditions for this deck? Bone Drake and Bone Mare. Yeah. That's not good.
Yeah.
It's just not fun, right?
Mhm.
And
You want to see different classes do different things. And I guess it's less of a problem in Constructed because decks are all doing different things. But in Arena, there's a real problem of making everything do the same. And the easiest way to make everything do the same is to give everybody the same really powerful cards.
yeah.
So, all right, that's Bone Drake. We spent enough time on it. I'll talk about the next one, which is, well, I really like this card. It is it's a class card. It's a Warlock card that they revealed kind of with very little fanfare. And I don't know how many people have picked up on just how ridiculous of a card this is yet. But this is like one of the best cards. This is like a problem card. This is like a game winner. And I don't think it's being like marketed as that right now. But it is Despicable Dreadlord, which is a Warlock rare minion. It is a demon. It's a 5-mana 4/5 demon, so a pretty horrible stat line. But at the end of your turn, you deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. Like always. At the end of every turn.
Always. Yeah.
Like you just deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. And so that's a repeating effect of a Arcane Explosion, which is 2 mana's worth. Or like 1.5 mana's worth if you think that's a crappy card. Like, what's happening? Why is this a card? And why do people not think this is like... I guess people aren't looking at it from an Arena perspective. I don't know how well this synergizes with what Warlock does. Probably not all that well in Constructed. But like in Arena, this is like, oh my god. Like Abyssal Enforcer died for this, right? Like, well, we have it again. It's only 1 damage. It's not like instantly board swinging. But the damage is going to really add up. Because remember, at the end of your turn and at the beginning of your turn... And like whenever, doesn't really matter except with taunts. So unless your opponent has a taunt on the board,
it does matter sometimes.
It does. It matters a decent percentage of time, but still, it's still 1 damage to everything. Like it's
the one thing I see about this card as well. Like, all right, whenever you need 1 damage ping, because I've seen one of the criticisms like, oh well, but the Dread Infernal does the same thing, and it does at the start, which sometimes is better. But 1 damage AOE's, especially. Getting it, the ability to get it out 1 turn earlier, right? Or the ability to just like have it be a little bit cheaper. It's really good.
Yep.
The 1 mana matters so much here. And the fact that like, yes, sometimes you won't be able to get the effect off twice, but the amount of times that you do get it off twice, just absolutely insane then. And you have to average those instances out, right? The times in which you get 2 Arcane Explosions off, like your opponent can't deal with it, absolutely ridiculous. I think this card is just insane.
Yeah. And following up with it, I'll go one more, but just so one of the things that we're gonna, and I talked about it a little, but the big cards that are coming out that are really good are Druid, Priest, and we've seen all the Priest cards already, and Warlock, and we've seen all the Warlock cards except for 1, and they're really good. So these are 3 classes. If you were to like pick classes that are going to be good based on card power alone: Priest, Druid, Warlock. Now, interestingly and fortunately, these are not terribly great classes in the Arena right now, so this is like a welcome change. This is like catching up. And the worst things we've seen so far are from Paladin, Shaman, and of course Warrior again. So Paladin, obviously, we wanted to get a little less powerful. Good. Shaman, I've just left Shaman for dead. Like, I know it's probably not the worst class in the game, but it really feels like it. And it's so random, and it's so just, I've left it for dead. And Warrior will definitely test how well the micro adjustments can work in terms of bringing a bad class up just by micro adjustments. But yeah, so we already talked about Defile in the last Lightforge with how good Warlocks are. They have more good cards. All these like removal type stuff, right? Like Unwilling Sacrifice is now a card. Choose a friendly minion. Destroy it and a random enemy minion. 1 more hard removal. So what do Warlocks have? 2 like small to medium-sized board clears. 1 hard removal. That's a ridiculous amount of things to get in 1 expansion.
Yep. And Unwilling Sacrifice, I think it's a card that people can overlook because it doesn't seem too great, right? It's like, oh, it's a worse Deadly Shot. but we have a lot of worse cards that end up being good, especially for class like Warlock, right? It's like Dark Bomb is a worse Frostbolt.
Yep.
Just like how this is a worse Deadly Shot. And that's fine, because Deadly Shot's a great card, and Frostbolt's a great card.
Yep. Okay, you want to talk about Priest?
Sure, we can talk about Priest. Look, all right, so Priest got some pretty big cards. The one that I want to talk about first, I want to talk about the big card first. Can I talk about the big card first?
You talk about the biggest card first.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm going to talk about a bigger card after you talk about this one, though.
Oh, true. Oh, yeah.
I was like, I'll give you the biggest card. I was like, wait, no, this is not set up in that way.
No. All right, so the card I wanted to talk about was Crypt's Card Reveal, and it is an epic card for the Priest. It's a minion. Obsidian Statue, 9 mana, so you know it's got to be good. 9 mana minion, 4/8 stats, taunt plus lifesteal with the death rattle, destroy a random enemy minion. I love the design of this. I think it's actually really good. And I'll tell you why. First of all, it can be hard removed, right? It can totally be hard removed. It doesn't have, the Sagoth effect. And whenever you play something big, especially for Priest, it has to do something. Like, it has to be really, really powerful. This thing taunts, it heals you up as well. And the death rattle, if they're super ahead, they can play around it kind of and increase the chances that it hits a small minion. But if you're sort of even on the board, Obsidian Statue gets dropped, it is going to get insane value. And I love the design of this card, because whenever you make big cards with discover effects or RNG effects, man, that it just feels bad, and it makes the calculations really hard, right? I know Obsidian Statue has a decent chance of coming out on turn 9 if they've held a card for so long. Even if I know they've held Free from Amber, what exactly do I play around, right? I play around a big thing, but I don't know what the big thing has. And they don't know either. They just know a big thing is coming out. Am I playing around Ysera? Am I playing around a 12/12? I don't know. I have no idea. So something like this that's very powerful, but I know what's coming up, it can give me a slight advantage. I can kind of plan around it.
Yeah. And, it's not Primordial Drake. So this is the right way to do Primordial Drake. Rather than destroying all the stuff, you let your opponents pick which one gets destroyed. You only have 8 damage, and you heal yourself up to make it still go anti-aggro without totally shutting down aggro.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, this is, I think it's just better card design. And I just want to add that Devour Mind is also a card. It's Thought Steal for 3 cards, 5 mana. Just normal, normal stuff. But they've added it in to just make the Priest even bigger, right? Like, that's the idea.
Right.
Make Priest bigger. What else? I guess we'll talk about the other big power thing coming. So we said, right? Like, we were doing Druid, Warlock, and Priest. We talked about the Warlock. We talked about the Priest. We're going to go back to the Priest a bit later because they have some decent, mid-sized cards too. But now we're going to talk about Druid.
Oh my gosh.
I love what Blizzard is doing with Druid. We were playing Druid today, so it's like Class Talk Druid. We'll just do it right now. But I would delay today's Arena Coup so that we could play Druid next weekend if I could. Because I don't want to use up the Druid right now. Druid's about to get so much better. So incredibly much better. I'm not even going to I'm going to run through everything just right now. All the Druid cards really, really quickly, just in case the listeners don't know what they are. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I'm going to run through them. Crypt Lord, 3 mana. Okay, let's start with 2 mana. 2 mana, Druid of the Swarm. 1/2, choose 1. Transform into a 1/2 with Poisonous, or transform into a 1/5 with Taunt. Remember, this is 2 mana. So it could be a Snail with no Taunt, or it could be a 1/5 Taunt, depending on what you need. Amazing. 3 mana, Crypt Lord, Taunt, 1/6. After you summon a minion, gain +1 health. Anytime you summon a minion, no one's dealing 6 damage on turn 3, so it's going to gain health. It's going to gain a number of health. It's going to hit stuff. Is it a good on-curve card? No, but is it a decent late-game card that really makes something like Mogushan look like utter trash because it is? Yes. Fitting the theme is what's most important, though, and then Druid has 2 more of these cards, also common/rares. One is Webweave. Summon 2 1/2 poisonous spiders. to push this theme. Like, there are 2 hard removals now being added to Druid. Yes, they're minions. Yes, they can be counter-removed. Yes, you actually need the boards for them to really act like hard removals most of the time. But Druids have no hard removals except Naturalize. This is kind of important. Like, Ixar even like made a post afterwards that was or a tweet or something that was like, hey, we had Webweave at 4 mana for a long time, but like it was just way too powerful, so we changed it to 5. And now we're like, eh. And I'm like, okay, but in Arena, this is still a really good card. Especially in Druid, when you need this kind of thing. And that was the whole thing, right? Like, Druid's design space is it should not be hard removing stuff without a huge penalty. And so here, the penalty is, well, they're minions. Your opponent gets a shot at them first. And to continue the other theme from Druid of the Swarm, I love how thematic Druid is in this expansion. So you have your snails that poison, and then you have your giant 1 like attack X health things that taunt. Right, Spreading Plague, which we've gone over last time as well. Summon 1/5 Scarab with Taunt for each of your opponent's minions until you have like the same number as your opponent's minions. So if you have stuff on the board, you actually don't get a lot of these. But if you're ever off the board, hey, super stall. And what are you doing all this stalling for, right? There's so much stalling going in for the Druid. So this is what you're stalling for. You're stalling for the Ultimate Infestation, which is a 10 mana card. This is Trump's card review, I believe. It is 5 damage, draw 5 cards, gain 5 armor, and summon a 5/5 ghoul. So for 10 mana, you deal 5 damage, that's like 5 tempo. You summon a 5/5 ghoul, that's like 5 tempo, so you're set. You've gotten the tempo out of this card, right? It has initiative too. And then you get 5 free armor and 5 free cards. Or, you know, you're like a sprint, right? And then for 1 more mana, you're at 9 mana. That's why you draw 5 cards. And so for 1 more mana, you get a 5/5 ghoul, you deal 5 damage, and you gain 5 armor.
Pretty good. This thing makes Firelands Portal look severely overcosted.
Yeah, right.
Now, look. There's a major difference, right? You can use Firelands Portal on turn 7. Turn 10 is an eternity from turn 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's... recognizing all of that, 10 mana, like this is, oh my gosh, 10 mana for all of that. That's insane. Why do you draw 5 cards? Why? Like, I understand they were trying to go for a 5 theme, but couldn't you just draw like 2 to 3 cards?
I think at that point they're like, it doesn't matter, you win the game. Like, you play this card, if you don't die in a little bit, you just win the game. It's fine. Give them all the cards. So the thing with 10 mana though is that it really does have like a much bigger penalty than 7 mana. Like there's a reason why they bumped, like if you were playing this game in like beta or whatever, they bumped Mind Control from 8 mana to 10 mana. They bumped Pyroblast from 8 mana to 10 mana. Not because they actually wanted it to cost more mana, they just couldn't have you playing that card on turn 8. They just couldn't have you playing that card on turn, like, you know. And so Firelands Portal can be played on turn 7. Even if it still costs 7 mana, but you couldn't play it until turn 10, it would be a way more balanced card. So at first I thought this was like potentially the best card ever, so I put it in the system. And the system told me it was the best card not named Pyros. And I was like, well, that's pretty good. And then we found something that was messing up the 10 mana calculations, and so we reran it again, and it is actually significantly not that good. It does have a lot of things, but because of how unplayable it is, and the playability penalties get like pretty high as you go up, it's the reason why Ultra Sword is not one of the best cards ever. It's a 12/12 worth of stats for 10 mana. It is because you just, by the time you get to the point in which this could make a difference, you've already won or lost the game most times. And War Axe is better. What are some other insanely good cards? Like Meteor's better. Like cards that look like they do way less than this card, they're better. It's too slow. And by it's too slow, I mean like it's so slow. It's only like the 6th best card in the game. That's kind of what I mean by it's too slow. It's also why Deathwing's ranking is no longer like the best card ever. Like we used to have it as the best card ever for a long time, and then it was like, it does win you some games, but like it locks you out sometimes, and it's a dead card for a little too long. Like 10 mana has a pretty big penalty.
Yep, but we shall see. Look, once again, it's not about whether or not this card is good, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculously good. The only thing we will be stuck arguing about is exactly how ridiculous it is. And I look forward to seeing exactly how ridiculous this card is. It really is just about how fast the meta is, right? And it seems to be slowing down. Who knows? I don't. We still have cards.
The thing is, Ungoro slowed it down, but like the point of snowballing is that the game is actually over, right? By a certain point, and it really looks like KFT is snowballing. So, at least in the arena, when KFT has a 100% bonus and Ungoro doesn't have a 100% bonus, it's going to be a snowball meta, and this card is not going to be terribly like. I mean, it's going to be really good, but it's not going to be like the best card ever in this meta.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about quite a few cards. These are, man, I would say they have definitely continued the trend from Ungoro of coming out with powerful and interesting cards, right? No more sort of old gods expansion of just like, oh, we'll introduce the old gods, but the rest of the cards, like, okay, you guys can taunt, you guys can have some weird stats, but that's it. They're done with that, right? They are upping their game for these expansions.
Yep.
And I think it's pretty cool. This is what the game definitely needs to stay relevant and to stay very interesting for new and old players.
It's a more challenging set, I feel, than what we're used to.
Yeah.
All right, interesting cards. Want to bring up a card you think is interesting?
Okay. All right. I want to talk about Mage. Can we talk about Mage?
Let's talk about Mage.
Right.
It sucks. Don't pick it. It's the worst class.
Oh yeah, like historically worse. But anyways, look, Mage. The card I want to talk about is Breath of Sindragosa, mostly because I think this card kind of summarizes Mage for this expansion, or the Mage cards for this expansion. Breath of Sindragosa is a 1-mana common spell that says deal 2 damage to a random enemy minion and freeze it. Look, this is exactly the kind of card that we're looking at because it's powerful, but it's small, right? And you look at sort of the minions for Mage as well. Nothing is coming out that gives Mage an incredible card advantage, right? Small minions, they do some,
Really? What about Glacial Mysteries? It's 8 mana.
Oh yeah, 8 mana has to be good, right? It has to be dealing like a super meteor. Glacial Mysteries is an 8 mana epic spell that says put one of each secret from your deck into the battlefield. If you want to Christmas tree it up in Constructed, you can, but there's really no use for it, or very minimal use for it in Arena. So the big card that was kind of revealed is not a big card at all in the Arena.
And the next biggest card that Mage got was 4 mana, 2/6, add mirror images to your hand in Ghastly Conjurer. So this is definitely like a small, like, hey, let's just supplement the Mage's kit a little kind of expansion.
Yep. So yeah, look, with Mage, they're definitely moving away from the super value game that we have seen historically, and we saw in Ungoro with Primordial Glyph and Meteor, right? Those were sort of the boogie cards that people hated from Ungoro, and we definitely won't see that sort of value from KFT.
And I guess you talked about Mage, I'll talk about Paladin. Righteous Protector. So the Righteous Protector is the 1-mana 1/1 Taunt Divine Shield. It is a Neutron for 1 less mana and having only 1 less health. It's a very important health, but still, it's just 1 less health. So it's going to be a pretty good card. And the more important part is that for 2 expansions in a row now, Paladin's gotten a really good 1/1 that has another 1/1. This is going to be a thing. It means it's really hard to take Paladins off the board in the early game now, because on turn 2, we've made a big point about this earlier in the Ungoro thing, in the Ungoro meta. Even if the Paladin just hero powers and doesn't actually have 2-drops, they've already put the 1-drops on the board. Their 1-drop is actually effectively, like if you compare it to a class that skips their turn 1, it's effectively 1 plus 2 drop is equal to 3 1/1s on the board, which is a pretty damn good, start compared to any other class. That's how Paladins get onto the board. And as we know in this meta, when you get onto the board, it's pretty damn easy to hold it because you snowball. So that's a really, really dangerous card to watch out for. Everything else the Paladin has sucked. So fine, they get one good card. I'll live with it. Well, at least everything else revealed so far sucks. Any other thing you want to talk about, or?
Let me see. We can talk about Priest just a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay, so another Priest is already snowbally, right?
Right. Well, the card I really want to address with Priest is Acolyte of Agony. 3 mana, 3/3 lifesteal. This seems like kind of a boring card. I think the important thing to point out is lifesteal has been touted as a huge mechanic in this expansion, and maybe it will with some of the neutral cards that we haven't seen yet. But as of right now, Acolyte of Agony is the lifesteal card that you're going to see a lot in the arena because this is actually a decent card just by itself. There's a lot of other lifesteal cards, but they're not very good. You know, we just talked about Paladin. One of the lifesteal cards is Chillblade Champion, which is a 4 mana 3/2 with charge and lifesteal. It's just not a good card, right? So
Yeah.
lifesteal, the mechanic, you might see it a lot in the expansion, in the cards. You just won't see it a lot in the arena because the cards aren't so good. And Acolyte of Agony, this is one that you will actually see a decent amount because you'll take a 3 mana 3/3 with an upside, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, I mean, the lifesteal mechanic seems like it can be very easily abused in a buffing meta. And so Blizzard has toned it down. But by toning it down, they make sure that it's not very good in the arena because arena's not going to synergize as well as constructed. So here, I think they just said, screw it. You're a priest. You're going to heal yourself up anyway. Let's do it. And the more scary card is not really this Acolyte of Agony card. It's this neutral rare card that got revealed today. It's called Happy Ghoul. It's another 3 mana 3/3. And here's what its text says. It says, cost 0 if your hero was healed this turn.
Man.
So you're not going to see lifesteal cards in the arenas. This applies to literally nobody. Except that one card in Priest. And Priest has a hero power. And if the Priest is hurt before turn 2, it can heal itself and play a Happy Ghoul. Happy Ghoul is normally an okay card. In a Priest, it's a really good card. So you will always be watching out for Happy Ghoul, which means nobody is hitting the Priest for 2 damage before turn 3. Or even after that, right? Like, even if you hit the Priest on turn 3 or 4 and they get a free 3/3 out, or like a 2 mana 3/3 out and heal themselves, that's a pretty big swing if you're trying to go aggro.
Yeah.
So this is a neutral card, but it's really a Priest card, and it basically, I think, does a pretty good job of single-handedly heavily punishing any aggressive deck. And that's okay, I think, because I think Priest needs something like that. I'm not even like terribly annoyed about this. You got to watch out when you're hitting Priest in the face early on now. And then we've established Priest as all these cards that are good in the late game. So it's kind of like, what do you do against a Priest? Well, you kind of get them in the mid game. You have to snowball yourself so out of control that when they try to do stuff later on, it like doesn't really matter. You can get through your Obsidian statutes.
Yep. No, this is just... It kind of is the 2-drop that people were hoping for, right? For Priest. People were like, how do you make a fair 2 mana 3/3? And this is how you do that. I think the design is very clever. Really, really clever. And I don't think people are, I'm probably not even looking at all the possible uses for it. But the times in which you are able to get out on turn 2 because someone with a 2/3 hits you to the face, people will learn very quickly if you have a 2/3, like if you coin out a 2/3, right?
Yeah.
You can't go face on turn 2 if they pass their turn 1.
No way. Not worth it.
Right. It's not worth it. It's not worth that 2 damage. And once again, it slows down the game. It changes the dynamic.
Acolyte of Agony, same thing, right? It slows down the game.
Yeah.
Like, especially in the early going. If you play that on a turn 3, it's not going to matter that much if your opponent hasn't hit you in the face. You can steal all the life you want. It doesn't do anything. But if your opponent's been aggressive and pushing the face, you're going to heal all of that damage back up because it's going to get hit at least once and steal 3 life.
Yep. So, look, I think very clever, interesting design. Props to the designers. I'm not going to enjoy seeing this in the arena.
Yeah. I'm going to hate playing against priests in the arena. Not that I already don't.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I think that's it for the Lightforge. I want to end on something that we haven't talked about yet, but we'll talk more about on Tuesday. We're gonna have a whole thing on Tuesday about this, and they're Death Knights. They exist. They're actually a pretty big part of this expansion. They're probably going to be a big part of the arena. I would actually be very surprised if they did not get an offering bonus. And if they got an offering bonus, then it will be 4 times as much as any of the like regular legendary minions that you'll see, and 8 times as many as your classic legendaries. So that's like a real thing. As we saw with Pyros, right? Like when the offering bonus is high, you get these cards. You actually do see these cards in the arena. So if you double the offering bonus on Pyros, all of a sudden you have pretty viable like chances of hitting a Death Knight every now and then. And that would make it really interesting in the arena. So I'm not going to analyze any of the Death Knights right now. You can wait for Tuesday's analysis. But I just wanted to say that we have not forgotten about Death Knights, and we know they're super powerful, and we know they're going to be coming to the arena, and we're just kind of biding our time before doing the analysis.
Yep.
Waiting for the card dump. Do we have a question from the GOAT? Or
question from the GOAT just kind of stems from the topic that you were talking about. I thought it'd be topical. Basically, which Death Knight are you most excited to draft and test out in the arena?
Draft and test out in the arena. Okay. So I'm really looking forward to Druid, but I think the most interesting card that I want to test out in the arena is Despicable Dreadlord. Because I
was talking about Death Knights.
Oh, sorry. This guy's just more powerful than a Death Knight. I just thought, we would I would test him out. My bad. I'm actually not like terribly psyched about any of the Death Knights in terms of testing them out. I just have this like arena mentality of like legendaries are not a thing, even though these obviously are going to be a thing. So I don't know. The Paladin one looks pretty epic. It's you get a 5/3 lifesteal weapon, and then you get to make 2/2s on the board. Like that's got to be just game winning right there. So
and if you summon all 4, you destroy the enemy hero.
Right. Okay. If you can summon 4 2/2s without any of them dying, sure, you win the game. But you would have won the game already anyway.
I'm gonna purposefully stall just so I can win the game like that.
Keep your opponent alive. BM him the whole time. I'm sure the Death Knights have excellent like voice lines.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure.
But I think that one just because it seems the most powerful in arena.
Yep. No, I think it's going to be good. I'm excited to try out Deathstalker Rexar, right?
Building zombies.
I want to build charging Flappy Birds. Those are always a good time. Or you can build charging Flappy Birds. You can build stealth Flappy Birds, right? What is it? If you combine a Flappy Bird with a Stranglethorn Tiger, you get an 8-mana 8/8 stealth that can adapt when it goes face. So I look forward to that as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. Question from the GOAT is brought to you by our patrons. Patreon.com/grinninggoat. And that is it from us. Reminder, Tuesday night, watch us live, or it'll be on YouTube Wednesday morning-ish, all from New York time, 7 o'clock Tuesday night, or sometime Wednesday morning on YouTube. And we will have card-by-card reviews of every single card. They are going to be numbered for the tier list. Everything is going to come out. And we are also doing a revamp of the tier list right now. So some of the numbers of existing cards, most of the numbers of existing cards, will look a bit different. But because we center everything, it'll still also kind of look the same. So you're not going to be totally lost when... it's not like some of the stuff we've done before, right? Like changing the scale from 50 to 100 or like whatever. But it's going to be a more friendly change. But it is going to rearrange a lot of things as we take this meta into account, and we take some of the lessons we've learned for previous metas to adjust the cards. So all that's happening, and you will get the first peek of it on Tuesday, including all the scores for the KFT cards and the rest of the tier list. And on the website is going to come out on the day of the release. So that's our plans. I've taken Monday and Tuesday off to make sure I'm able to handle all this incoming Hearthstone KFT madness, and it's gonna be fun. I'm excited. I kind of missed them not having the card dump because I wanted to spend the whole weekend just pouring over it.
All right, but we have a lot of content coming your way. This is just a small preview, and I'm ready, man. I'm ready for the expansion. I'm ready for the grind. Let's do this.
Are you ready for an Ungoro Druid?
I am not, but we are doing it anyways. It doesn't matter if we're ready. So
okay. Until next time, this is the Lightforge podcast with your host ADWCTA.
This is Merps. See you guys in KFT.
All right. I have clearly been failing at